I just received this message. This message goes into different topics that I want to bring up. First topic is about teaching the martial arts. And this person's talking about how there's a lot of people that are out of shape, that are teaching the martial arts they shouldn't be teaching. And this video is addressing the issue of, why everybody wants to teach the martial arts. The simple reason is because, in my eyes, is because people just want to make money. People want to make money, and you can only make money teaching. If you're a student, you're not going to get paid for learning. Most of the time, if you're a student, you're going to have to pay money to learn. So in order to make money, you have to teach. So that's why there's so many people that want to teach, so they can make the money. And even people that haven't been studying that long, even they could study for like a couple days, and then all of a sudden they can start to try to advertise themselves as teachers so they can make money. And it has almost become like product reviews, where people go on Amazon or they go on YouTube and then they make product reviews. It's like people want to quickly, criticize or judge certain things in order to to give their opinion. That's almost how teaching has become. Whereas you got people that are truly qualified who've been studying something for like 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, or however long, and then they can make a video teaching people. Or you got people who are not qualified, who've been only studying for a couple hours, and then now they want to teach people what they don't really even know themselves. And it just makes it more complicated for people to determine who are the qualified teachers and who are not. I mean, if you have 1 million people trying to teach the martial arts, then out of those 1 million people, who are the ones that are real masters in what they do? It's going to be harder to determine because there's just so many teachers. But when you identify people that have gotten to a certain level where they've received some type of certification, and then you're dependent on these certifications in order to help you determine like who's qualified, who's not, then it gets a little bit easier. When you're searching around for a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, a professor, they have to go through a certain amount of training in order to get to the level of where they're at. But in the martial arts, there is no such thing, and it is hard to determine. But one thing I want people to recognize and realize and pay attention to is, in the martial arts, it's easier to false advertise, because even people who are out of shape may try to claim the martial arts and they want to teach the martial arts because they claim it's a mental, intellectual, mental and intellectual thing to pass on. So something like maybe like a scientist or philosopher or a psychologist, they don't really need to be in shape in order to educate you, right? And then in order to assess a person's intelligence, it's not something that's visual. It's something that takes place through time. You get to know the person, and you get to see like how much this person actually knows that he can teach you. But yet, if this person cannot physically demonstrate these techniques of what he is trying to teach himself, then I see that there's a conflict there. Because we all have access to the internet, and the internet is a vast source of knowledge. We could get knowledge from all different sources from people all over the world. So why would we have to depend on a living human being to get knowledge for when we could just get it from the internet? One thing that makes a person more qualified in teaching the martial arts is not just knowing, but actually doing. Actually being able to perform the techniques of which he is trying to teach. And I'm just speaking about the physical aspect of the martial arts right now. I haven't even talked about the spiritual just yet. But that's one thing I want people to pay attention to. Because it's harder to false advertise yourself as a personal trainer because it's something that's physical. Like, why would you hire a personal trainer who does not represent health himself? If he's really out of shape and very lazy and he doesn't like to exercise, then why would you hire this person as a personal trainer? When it comes to personal training, you at least you're expected to represent physical health. And in my eyes, martial arts should be the same. Not just the same, but held to a higher standard. I feel that martial art teachers should represent health to even higher standard than personal trainers. To me, fitness is the foundation to the martial arts. Without the fitness, then in my eyes it automatically discounts the individual of being qualified. To me, I liken martial arts training to be similar to like a PhD, obtaining a PhD, and then getting, being a fitness trainer I associate to be likened to getting an associate's degree. And then being a self-defense coach, I might liken to just basically being like maybe getting a bachelor's degree. To me, the highest standard for the martial arts, to me the martial arts should be held to a much higher standard than what fitness trainers are held to, or even self-defense coaches. But yet there's a lot of people that do get away with teaching the martial arts, even though they may not be qualified to teach the martial arts. Because as I stated, it's easier to false advertise. Other things that I noticed too is that some people are just born naturally bigger than other people. And one thing that I noticed is that bigger people, it's easier for them to generate force and power in striking techniques because of their size advantage. So you might have somebody who's a big person, maybe even overweight, but he might not be that strong. He can't do a pull-up, can't run, down the block without getting tired, barely bench press anything, can't do a push-up, but yet he could still punch the heavy bag pretty hard simply because he's a big person. And sometimes I feel that just because a person's big and he can punch hard, people may mistakenly believe that this person is qualified to teach the martial arts because they're naturally just a heavy hitter. Other things that gets me to think about is the majority of the population is either overfat, overweight, or obese. So I think they say like 70% of the population at least is overfat, obese, or overweight. Now, if you have a teacher, martial arts teacher, who's overweight himself or obese himself that's teaching, then he ends up becoming relatable to the people, to the majority of the public. So if people that are overweight themselves are criticizing a martial arts teacher who's overweight, then what is there to criticize? Because it's being hypocritical. Because you're criticizing, if somebody's criticizing the martial art teacher to be overweight, and then they're overweight themselves, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. Like you're criticizing somebody of which you are the same yourself. So what I'm saying is that it could be that a lot of martial arts teachers who are not in shape are very successful in teaching and finding students because a majority of the public out there are, out of shape and overweight themselves. So then it's easier for them to accept a teacher that is not representing health because they are not representing health. And if you have a teacher who's willing to give you credentials, give you recognition, give you ranks and titles without having to put any effort in your fitness development, then you're more likely to join because you are more likely to succeed in a school that doesn't value fitness. So if you have a teacher who doesn't value fitness, and he establishes a curriculum that has nothing to do with fitness, and then he advances you within this curriculum because fitness is not important in the school, then it's much easier for this school to become successful because the majority of the public is out of shape, unfit, and do not care about fitness. So then it ends up becoming this sort of corruption in the martial arts where you have a lot of people that are teaching the martial arts that are not fit themselves, that are unqualified, that are certifying other people to teach the martial arts that are unfit and unqualified themselves, and it just becomes an epidemic. It becomes like a virus. Like more and more people out there are misrepresenting the martial arts because of this corruption. But if it's a personal trainer or a fitness instructor, you can't really get around the fitness because you are labeled as a fitness teacher, fitness instructor. Like, how could you be seen as a fitness instructor if you're not even fit yourself? So the false advertisement is already very apparent, and it's identifiable. But when you have something like, hey, this is a master basketball coach, even though he's not a great basketball player like Michael Jordan, it doesn't necessarily discount him as a great coach. Because you got somebody like Phil Jackson, who's never ever nearly as good as Michael Jordan, but as a coach, he was probably one of the most successful coaches to ever live. Because his coaching is a lot about intelligence, and that intelligence is transferred onto the players on the court. So it's like the integration of the body and the mind. The players are representing the body, and then the coach is representing the mind, and he's merging the two to create success within that sport. So I think a lot of the martial art teachers are hiding behind the mind and failing to develop the body and advertising that they're capable in their mental development in which to train others in the martial arts. And then it ends up creating like a poor representation of the martial arts when there's a bunch of students, a bunch of teachers that are all out of shape claiming the martial arts. And that becomes an issue. So those are some of the things that I recognize that are some issues. Because if you have a teacher who's really in shape, martial art teachers are really in shape, and then he demands fitness within his students, a lot of the public will be discouraged because they're not able to meet up with those standards. And then they quit the school and they want to join another school where they feel accepted. You know, imagine a martial arts school says that, hey, you know, in order to join the school, you need to meet up with these fitness standards. If over 70% of the population is already unfit, then that only leaves 30% left of the population to potentially profit from. And then it's more likely that the school will go out of business because it's just not enough of the general public that will be able to meet up with these fitness standards. Let's say you got this other school that's run by an unfit teacher or so-called master, and then there's no discrimination on fitness. Anybody could join, everybody could join, no matter how fit you are or how unfit you are. And anybody and everybody could receive a certificate or a black belt or a degree or a title regardless of their fitness. Then the school is more likely to succeed because there's no discrimination, and 100% of the public could potentially become customers because there's absolutely no discrimination. But then the representation of the martial arts suffers because more and more practitioners are claiming the martial arts that are not properly representing the martial arts. And this is an issue that's not just about fitness and combat, but also about spirituality and meditation. Because there are very fit instructors out there as well, but then the problem rests in them lacking their meditation development and in creating very strong and crystallized egos within the students that they teach. And then you just have like a bunch of violent fighters out there that are fit, but violent, competitive, aggressive, angry, short-tempered. So there's that issue as well. To me, a real martial arts teacher, a truly qualified one, should be developed in all areas, including fitness, combat, and spirituality, meditation. Any lack of in any of the three categories will disqualify him from being an individual representing a high level in the martial arts. You know, but there's nobody there to dictate who should and should not become martial art teachers. And that's why it rests a lot of the burden onto the consumer or the student to determine themselves who are truly the qualified individuals and who are not. So that's what I see. And that's it for that topic.